In the last week of July 2014, the water trucks in northern Nebraska started moving before sunrise. Not one truck, dozens of them. Steel tanks rattling down gravel roads, dust hanging behind them like smoke, men driving with one hand on the wheel, and the other hand doing math they did not want to finish. The ponds had dropped first, then the dugouts, then the shallow wells that had served 3 generations of cattlemen began pulling sand, air, and brown water. By August, cattle were bawling at empty tanks all over the southern edge of the sandhills. But 7 miles east of Valentine, on a place every neighbor thought was wasting good ground, one herd was still drinking from a hand-dug well beside a ragged 9-acre Seep meadow. That meadow was not pretty. It was sedges, rushes, mosquito water, and soft black soil that swallowed a boot if you stepped wrong. For 15 years, people had told Russ Kline to cut a ditch through it and make it useful. His daughter told him not to. Her name was Avery Kline, and the summer everyone called that meadow wasted ground. The wasted ground held water. Avery was 24 when she came back to the Kline place in the spring of 2011. She had spent 3 years at the University of Nebraska studying range ecology and groundwater movement, which sounded useful to her and suspicious to nearly everyone who had known her since she was small. Because in Cherry County, useful knowledge usually came with grease on it, manure on it, or 30 years of bad weather behind it. Avery had none of those things in the way the older men recognized. What she had was a sun-faded orange field book, a truck with a cracked windshield, and a habit of kneeling in grass to feel the soil with her bare fingers. Her father, Russ Kline, was 59. He ran 420 acres that his father had pieced together after a run of bad weak years in the 1950s. The place sat on the edge where the Nebraska sandhills begin to soften into ranch country, all rolling grass, wind-bent cottonwoods, and low places that held more water underground than they ever showed on top. The strangest low place on the Kline property was a 9-acre Seep meadow below a shallow rise north of the calving barn. Nobody called it a wetland. They called it the bog. They called it the mosquito patch. They called it that place where a tractor could embarrass a man. It had standing water in April and May, ankle-deep in June, and by late summer it looked mostly dry unless you knew what to look for. Sedge roots stayed green when the hills around it went gray. The soil stayed cool under the crust. And 30 yards from its eastern edge stood an old windlass well Russ's grandfather had dug by hand in 1953, lined with stone and capped with a plywood lid nobody had opened in years. To Russ, the meadow had always been an inconvenience that happened to be familiar. To the neighbors, it was worse than that. It was a mistake still sitting there. Cal Haskett said so more than anyone. Cal ran 900 acres west of town, chaired half the committees worth chairing, and had a voice that could turn an opinion into local weather. He had drained 3 wet meadows on his own place in the late 1990s. He had cut clean ditches, dried them out, put them into hay, and told every man within 20 miles that wet ground only made money after you taught it to stop being wet. That was the sentence Avery heard all her childhood. Wet ground only makes money after you teach it to stop being wet. At school, she learned why that sentence was only true in ordinary years. In Professor May Coulter's office in Lincoln, Avery had spent 2 semesters asking questions about sub-irrigated meadows, shallow aquifers, drought delay, capillary rise, and why some pastures stayed alive weeks longer than others even when the sky had stopped helping. Dr. Coulter had a blunt way of talking. She told Avery that in the sandhills, surface water was often the least important thing water did. The real work happened below the grass. A low meadow could absorb spring runoff, slow it down, push it into sandy soil, and feed the shallow water table through the worst part of summer. Not forever, not magically, but long enough to matter. Avery copied the numbers into her orange field book. In 3 university plots across north-central Nebraska, pastures within 300 yards of intact Seep meadows maintained usable root zone moisture 5 to 7 weeks longer during drought stress than similar pastures attached to drained low ground. 5 to 7 weeks. In an office, that sounded like a data point. On a cattle operation in a drought year, 5 weeks could mean the difference between buying overpriced hay and selling bred cows into a falling market. There were more numbers. A cooperative ranch study near Thetford had followed 4 cow-calf operations for 14 years. 2 had drained low meadows. 2 had left them intact. During the 3 driest years in the study window, intact meadow pastures produced 28 to 36% more usable grazing days around the recharge zone. In normal rainfall years, the difference was small. 4%. 6%. Almost nothing. That was the part Avery kept circling. The meadow did not pay every year. It waited. Then, when the year turned mean, it paid all at once. In April of 2011, Avery carried those numbers to her parents' kitchen table. She spread out a hand-drawn map of the Kline place. She marked the Seep meadow. She marked the old well. She marked the slope where spring water entered from the north fence line. Then she drew a pale blue circle around the surrounding pasture. "That is not lost hay ground," she told Russ. "That is the cheapest reservoir we own." Russ looked at the map for a long time. His wife Elaine sat beside the stove with a mug of coffee cooling in both hands. Russ did not argue. That made Avery nervous, because Russ was a man who usually argued as a form of thinking. He looked at the field book. He looked at the blue circle. Then he tapped the pencil against the table and said, "How much hay would that 9 acres make if I cleaned it up?" Avery had expected the question. "About $800 a year on a good year," she said. "Maybe 1,000 if prices are kind." Russ nodded. "And what do you say it saves in a bad one?" Avery turned the field book around. Conservatively, 12 to 18,000 in avoided feed, water hauling, and early liquidation across a 10-year period. More if a real drought hits. Russ read the page. His face did not change. Then he closed the book and said, "I will think on it." That was all he gave her. But 2 days later, when Cal Haskett stopped by and mentioned the ditch contractor coming through the county in May, Russ said he was not cutting the bog that spring. Cal laughed. Russ shrugged. Avery heard the story from her mother later. Russ had not defended the decision. He had simply refused to move it. That was permission enough. Avery spent the next month doing work that looked foolish from the road. She fenced a 50-foot buffer around the meadow margin, so cattle could not trample the wettest sedge beds in spring. She pulled rotten boards off the old well cover, cleaned the casing, ran a water test through the extension office, and lowered a weighted tape down the shaft every Monday morning. She installed 3 soil moisture tubes in the north pasture and 3 more on a higher south slope that did not touch the meadow. She wrote down rainfall, grass height, grazing dates, well depth, forage condition, and every neighbor comment Russ repeated at supper. Most of those comments were not flattering. Someone told Russ's daughter was building a fence around mud. Someone else said college had taught her how to protect mosquitoes. Cal Haskett said the whole thing would be funny if wire had not gotten so expensive. Avery wrote those comments down, too, not because they were data, because they explained what the data would have to beat. In June, Russ took Avery to the county cattlemen's meeting at the fairgrounds in Valentine. He said she should listen. That was what fathers said when they wanted their daughters to learn a room without being hurt by it. Avery listened for almost an hour. Then the extension agent asked whether anyone had questions about drought planning. Avery raised her hand. The room turned before she even stood up. She said she wanted to share what the university data showed about intact Seep meadows and drought buffering. She said the Kline place had one. She said she was starting measurements. She said, carefully, that draining wet ground might improve hay production in ordinary seasons while weakening water resilience in the season that actually broke ranches. Cal Haskett let her finish. He always let people finish when he knew the room was his. Then he leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms over his belt buckle, and smiled. "Miss Kline," he said. The title made her sound younger than her own age. "I respect a person who loves a piece of family ground. I do. But calling a bog a reservoir because it holds puddles in spring." He paused. A few men were already smiling. "That is not drought planning, that is affection wearing a lab coat." The room laughed. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to teach the room what it was allowed to think. The extension agent did not laugh. The lane Kline, who had come with Russ and was sitting near the back, did not laugh either. Avery sat down. She did not defend herself. She opened her orange field book and wrote 6 words. Affection wearing a lab coat. Then she drew a straight line beneath them. On the drive home, Russ drove with both hands on the wheel. The sun was going down hard and flat across the grass. For 9 miles, he said nothing. Then he cleared his throat. "You held steady," he said. Avery looked out the passenger window. "I was right," she said. Russ did not answer right away. Another mile passed. Then he said, "Then make the numbers prove it." That was as close to trust as Russ Kline knew how to speak at the time. So Avery did. The first year proved almost nothing. The spring of 2011 was decent. The meadow filled in April, shrank by July, and the well stood at 19 feet in May and 22 feet in September. The north pasture stayed good. The south pasture stayed good. Cal Haskett cut clean hay off his drain bottoms and made sure Russ heard about it. Avery wrote down the hay price, the well depth, and the lack of drama. Because she understood something her critics did not, a system built for bad years will look unnecessary in good ones. In 2012, the sky gave less, not disaster, just less. Late rains missed them, hot wind came early. By the end of July, the south slope on the Kline place had gone brittle enough that the grass broke under a boot. The north pasture, the one tied to the Seep meadow, held color until the 3rd week of August. Not lush, not postcard green, but alive. Avery's grazing records showed the north pasture provided 21% more usable forage days during the July and August stress window than the higher south slope. The old well dropped from 18 feet to 24. Still water, still clean. Russ noticed before she told him. One evening Avery found him standing by the fence with his hands hooked in his pockets, looking from the gray south pasture to the dull green seam above the meadow. He did not know she was there. He was doing arithmetic. In 2013, the pattern sharpened. Spring came thin. The county missed 2 storm systems in June. By mid-July, Mabur ponds were low enough to expose black rings at the edges. Avery's north pasture held 3.5 weeks longer than the south ground. The well dropped 6 feet, then steadied. Her moisture tubes showed water available below 4 feet long after the upper soil had dried to powder. She took those records to the fall cattlemen's meeting. The room was quieter this time. Cal Haskett did not laugh. He asked whether her sample size was too small. Avery said yes. Then she added that small did not mean useless when the cattle were drinking from the small sample. That got no laughter. It got something better. Silence. The kind of silence where people are measuring whether they have been wrong. Then 2014 arrived with a hard wind and no mercy. By May, the grass was already short. By June, the dugouts looked tired. By July, the county extension office was sending notices about emergency water plans, early weaning, and pasture stress. Feed prices climbed. Water tanks sold out at the supply yard. Every conversation at the co-op became a quiet confession about how much longer a man could hold before selling cows he had spent a decade breeding. On the Kline place, the Seep meadow looked ugly by the 3rd week of July. The center still held a shallow dark pool, but the edges were cracked, and the sedges had yellowed at the tips. A stranger would have looked at it and seen failure. Avery looked at the well. 27 feet. Down 9 from spring. Still producing. She wrote the number in her field book with a hand that did not shake until after she closed it. The North Pasture was not green. That matters. Stories like this get ruined when people make them too pretty. The North Pasture was stressed. The grass was short. The cattle had to work. Russ bought supplemental feed at a price that made him sit at the kitchen table too long after supper. But the pasture was alive where other pastures had stopped being pasture at all. The meadow was feeding the ground from underneath. Not enough to make the year easy. Enough to keep the herd from breaking. By August 10th, Russ had moved every cow he could spare toward the North Pasture rotation. By August 15th, the old well beside the Seep meadow was filling a stock tank twice a day. By August 22nd, Russ stopped talking about the cost of feed and started talking about how to keep from overgrazing the ground that was saving them. 3 miles west, Cal Haskett sold 109 pairs in 2 emergency sales. He did not sell because he was foolish. He sold because he had no water, and no grass, and no time. The drained bottoms that had made hay for him in ordinary years had no reserve left to give. The ditches had done their job too well. They had taught the wet ground to stop being wet. Now, in the 1 year he needed it to remember how, it could not. That is the cruel thing about drought. It does not punish every bad decision immediately. It waits until the decision has become a habit. Then it sends the bill all at once. By September, Avery's records showed the meadow-adjacent pasture had produced 43% more usable grazing days through the stress window than the Kline South Slope, and 37% more than the local extension average for comparable upland pasture. The well never went dry. It hit 29 feet in late August, held there for 11 days, then rose after the first real rain. When Russ's accountant added the avoided water hauling, the cattle not sold into a depressed market, the bred cows not replaced, and the hay they did not have to buy, the number came to just over $72,000. $72,000 from 9 acres of sedges, rushes, mosquito water, and soft black soil. The bog had paid. Russ found Avery at the old well on a cold morning in October. She was replacing the cover before winter. He parked by the gate, walked across the short grass, and stood with his hands in his coat pockets. Avery waited. Russ looked at the meadow. Then he looked at the well. Then he said, "I should have listened faster." It was not exactly an apology. From Russ Kline, it was more expensive than one. Avery set the hammer down. "You listened before you had proof," she said. Russ shook his head. "No. I permitted it. That is different." The wind pushed through the dry sedges. Russ looked embarrassed by his own honesty, which made Avery look away to spare him. Then he said, "From here on, water decisions are yours." He took off his glove and held out his hand. Avery shook it. No speech, no hug, no music swelling over the pasture. Just a father, a daughter, an old well, and a decision that had finally caught up to the evidence. But the story did not stay on the Kline place, because proof has a different sound after people have paid for ignoring it. That winter, the extension agent used Avery's records in a county drought review. He did not call her a savior. He did not have to. He published the forage logs, the well depths, the rainfall comparison, and the 2014 liquidation numbers. He called the Kline Field Book the most complete producer-maintained recharge record submitted during the drought response period. Avery cut that sentence out of the report and taped it inside the front cover of the orange book. Not for pride, for memory, because rooms forget young women fast unless the paper makes them slower. By spring, ranchers who had laughed in 2011 were asking Russ whether Avery might look at a low place on their property. Russ gave them her number. Some called. Some asked their wives to call. Some drove to the Kline place and acted like they had always been curious. Avery did not make them confess first. Mostly. She walked their ground. She looked at grass species, soil texture, slope, spring flow, old well locations, and whether past ditches were still draining the place after the water should have been held. She gave simple recommendations. Fence the margin. Stop grazing wet sedge beds in spring. Measure weekly. Do not cut a ditch until you understand what that ditch is carrying away. At first, 4 operations listened, then 7, then 12. By 2016, the county cattlemen's meeting had a new session on wet meadow retention. Cal Haskett attended. He sat in the second row. His face had the careful blankness of a man trying not to give the room anything to use. At the end of the meeting, he stood up. Everyone turned. Cal cleared his throat and said he had a 40-acre bottom on his west lease that used to stay wet into June before he drained it years back. He said the ditch was still there. He said he wanted to know whether there was any point in blocking it. He did not look at Avery when he asked, but the question was hers. The room knew it. Avery stood. She did not smile. She did not punish him with the laugh he had given her. She asked him how deep the ditch was. She asked whether the old grass line was still visible. She asked how far the nearest well sat from the meadow edge. Then she said, if the soil has not oxidized too far and the sedge bed can re-establish, you may get part of the storage back. Not this year, maybe not next. But some. Cal nodded slowly. Then he said, I called it affection once. The room held its breath. Avery looked at him. You did, she said. Cal took that. He deserved to take it. Then he said, I was wrong. No one laughed. That was how you could tell the county had changed. Not because everyone understood the hydrology, because the room no longer needed the wrong thing to be funny. In 2017, Avery was invited to speak at a range resilience workshop in North Platte. She drove there in a borrowed pickup with a box of field books, soil charts, well logs, and photographs of the meadow from April, July, August, and October of 2014. Russ and Elaine drove separately. Russ said he had business in town. That was a lie so gentle no one bothered correcting it. Avery stood in front of 96 ranchers, extension agents, and conservation planners. She did not begin with philosophy. She began with 2 photographs. One showed the Kline South Slope on August 20th, gray and bitten to the crown. The other showed the meadow pasture the same day. Thin, pale, imperfect, but still holding cow. Then she put up the well depth chart. 18 feet in April, 27 in July, 29 in late August, still producing. Then she said the line that later got repeated more than any other. Resilience is not the same as abundance. Sometimes it is just enough water arriving late. The room wrote it down. Avery saw Russ in the 4th row. He had his cap in his lap. When the questions ended and people stood to clap, Russ stood too. He was not a man who stood for applause, but he stood for this. Elaine reached over and took his arm. Avery looked away before anyone saw her face change. Over the next few years, the Kline Meadow became less of a local joke and more of a local reference point, not a miracle, a reference point. That mattered to Avery. She hated miracle stories. Miracle stories let people admire an outcome without understanding the cause. The meadow did not save them because it was special in a mystical way. It saved them because roots, sand, slope, and water were doing work nobody had bothered to price correctly. By 2019, the County Extension Office had added a low meadow water assessment to its drought planning checklist. By 2020, 12 ranches in the region had fenced or restored wet meadow margins, based partly on Avery's field protocol. Cal Haskett's west lease did recover, slowly. The first year after he blocked the deepest ditch, not much changed. The second year, sedges came back along the lower bend. By the third year, his nearby monitoring well stayed 4 feet higher through August than it had before the repair. Cal brought those numbers to a meeting himself. He said he was too old to pretend a ditch was smarter than a drought. The room laughed then, but it was a different laugh. It let a man be wrong without needing a woman to be small. Years later, Avery kept the first orange field book on a shelf in the mudroom. Its cover was warped. Its corners had gone soft from rain, coffee, and being shoved behind the seat of a pickup. Inside were the 6 words Cal had used to dismiss her. Affection, wearing a lab coat. Under them were 11 years of measurements: water depth, rainfall, forage days, cattle weights, repair costs, names of ranchers who called after they had run out of better ideas. Proof, line after line, until the insult looked too small to matter. One evening in April of 2023, Avery's nephew Eli came into the kitchen carrying a tablet, 2 soil sample bags, and a folded map of the South Lease. He was 17. He had grown up checking the Meadow well with Avery on Monday mornings, lowering the tape, listening for the faint touch of metal against water, and calling out the number while she wrote it down. Now he spread the map across the kitchen table. He said he had been reading about mixed species cover on fragile upland slopes. He thought 3 fields on the South Lease were losing too much soil in winter wind. He had a rotation in mind: winter rye, sainfoin, a short rest grazing plan that would keep living roots in the ground longer. He had costs. He had risk. He had trial data from 2 counties over. Avery looked at the map. She looked at the sample bags. She looked at Eli's face, earnest and nervous and waiting to be laughed at by someone older. For a moment, she was back in 2011. Orange field book on the table. Her father asking what the bog would make as hay. Cal Haskett leaning back in a folding chair. The room laughing because laughter was easier than reconsidering. Then she slid the tablet closer and said, "Show me the numbers." Eli exhaled. He had been holding the breath for longer than he knew. Outside, the Seep meadow sat low and rough below the calving barn, taking in April water without announcing itself. The sedges were greening at the edge. A meadowlark called from a fence post. The old well stood capped beside it, quiet as a witness. Avery opened a fresh orange field book and wrote the date on the first page. Eli began talking. This time, nobody laughed. They had called it wasted ground. They had called it affection. They had called it mud that needed to be taught a lesson. Then the dry year came, and the lesson went the other way. The meadow did not argue. It held. The cattle drank. And the water underneath the surface proved what the room above it had refused to see.